According to police reports that saw the substance in the FNAF books, it's appeared to be a bubbling liquid mercury. The appearance of this glowing silvery liquid is similar to Remnant depicted in the novel trilogy, particularly in the fourth closet, which makes sense given that Remnant, as we know, is a combination of human soul and metal, which is created when a soul possesses a metal-based object like an animatronic endoskeleton. In the Fazbear Frights books, where most of this lore comes from, its powers are expanded upon. Remnant can be used to make already living beings even more powerful through the power of positive memories. Kind of like how everyone gets defeated by the power of love in The Flash. The primary scientist studying Remnant is Dr. Talbert, a friend of Phineas Taggart who studied its negative counterpart, Agony, which now means that the Agony that possesses animatronics and the human soul are two different things, but seemingly both of which had to come from someone who died. Talbert studied Remnant because his daughter Renelle was sick when she was younger and he wanted to hold on to the good memories of her in case he lost her. Remnant could also be isolated and put into a certain object, so Talbert created a pendant made from Remnant metal as a gift for Renelle. Keep in mind that this Remnant is also just a form of metal. It's kind of like a metal compound, like Damascus steel, but instead of a lot of layers of steel, it's metal and souls melted down, and then that is liquid Remnant, but then as a solid, I guess you could say it's a Remnant nugget. It's unclear how Dr. Talbert got his hands on such a large amount of Remnant, but he had a steady supply that somehow was consistently delivered to his house. This also got the attention of an evil entity named Eleanor, who was introduced, or I guess created in the story to be beautiful from 1:35 a.m., the second Fazbear Frights book. Her goal was to obtain Remnant for herself to become even more powerful, so that she could spread pain and suffering across the world using the power of positive vibes. However, what we currently know about Remnant and Agony tells us that to destroy it properly, we need to burn it. Hence why there have really been so many fires in this series. FNAF 3, 6, and 9 all end with something or someone getting set on fire. FNAF 3's fire was all about dealing with Springtrap, and FNAF 6 was about putting everyone who knew about the atrocities that occurred at Freddy's to rest, and sending William to hell. And then, in FNAF 9, we burn Trap multiple times to get him to stop possessing Freddy, and to again try to kill him. Because Gregory is not above killing. That's a topic for another day. And this is because Henry learned that the only way to destroy Remnant and put these beings to rest was through fire. But is that really how we deal with these animatronics and people? Because like, while 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Crest Pro Health toothpaste, 3 out of 3 FNAF fires haven't worked. We have been told that fire is the only thing that is hot enough to burn off Remnant and to actually destroy it, aside from the fact that matter cannot be created nor destroyed, but it's also been described as a liquid metal. Liquid metal is a hell of a lot hotter than your typical run-of-the-mill gasoline fire, trust me, okay? I have the expertise in this department, so in essence, every single animatronic who is supposed to be set free by a cleansing fire hasn't been so far. The only time we've seen souls actually be put to rest is in FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame, which involved no fire and just putting the souls to rest by giving them what they wanted, a birthday party. But how could that be possible? Like, Dr. Talbert wouldn't lie to us. He's researching so his little girl wouldn't die, right? Well, this is where this theory starts to blow your mind. I don't think that Dr. Talbert, as described in the FNAF Fazbear Frights books, is a real person. Or rather, I don't think that Dr. Talbert is truly his name. Let's think about it. Who else do we know with a daughter in a compromising position who would have an endless flow of Remnant from an undisclosed source and a close personal friend working as his opposite? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, William frickin' Afton. William Afton, my friends, is the true identity of Dr. Talbert. William is no stranger to using aliases either. Remember Dave Miller from the Silver Eyes? Exactly. And this connection only gets stronger the more you look at it. See, Talbert's daughter ends up being impersonated by Eleanor, who in the Fazbear Frights books is, like, described to be Baby. She's described as basically Baby, just with a longer neck. So both daughters in this scenario also end up becoming Baby at some point. Renelle through being impersonated, and Elizabeth when she possessed Baby through, you guessed it, Remnant. And Talbert and Eleanor are attacked by the Stitch Wraith. What does that relate to? Perhaps the son, who is part animatronic, that's been working to undo his father's plans? Michael? Have we seen the animatronics in the games? No, so how can we take any of what's being said in the Fazbear Frights epilogues as fact? The baby blob turned out to be real, but everything else could simply be a metaphor. And Rennell might not even be meant to represent Elizabeth. It could be meant to represent Crying Child, making Eleanor Elizabeth and the Stitch Wraith Michael, and honestly, that sounds like a much more plausible solution than what's being described in these books, especially with the revelation that Gregory could, again, be a rebuilt Crying Child robot, because all these experiments with Remnant worked. If this was truly describing William and Crying Child and Michael and Elizabeth, this would make perfect sense with the story. This is like a recap of what's been going on with FNAF. FNAF 4, Crying Child dies. So William promises that he will put him back together by finding Remnant after he kills the 5 missing children and then disassembling them in FNAF 3's minigames when he releases the spirits and then gets trapped in the Springlock suit. But then we also learn in the original novel trilogy that the Remnant from the original 5 animatronics was injected into the Funtime animatronics. So while the Funtime animatronics have the souls of the 5 missing children all combined into one, they also are serving as an experiment for how he can use it to bring back his son. And he even injects Eleanor, who was impersonating Rennell, with the Remnant, just as he recreates Crying Child into Gregory. So here's how I see it. William as Talbot through, I'm guessing, just journals that Henry just somehow stumbled onto were made to spread the rumor of Remnant needing to burn, to be destroyed, so that if Henry ever tried to stop William, he wouldn't be able to. That's why William knows he'll always come back. He's rigged the game, and in doing so, ensured the survival of himself, his daughter, and his 2 sons. Rennell is a representation of Crying Child, having been bitten at his birthday party in 1983 that William is trying to save. Eleanor is the power-hungry daughter Elizabeth that only wants the Remnant for herself, even willing to abandon her father to die to live another day, as we see with the Afton amalgamation, or even kill her father, as we potentially see at the end of the true FNAF Security Breach ending. And the Stitch Wraith is Michael, at first misunderstood, killing his creator like Michael tried in the FNAF 3 and 6 Fire, but in reality trying to right the wrongs of his father before him and bring peace to his family. And as we see in Security Breach, they accomplished their goals. Gregory, representing Crying Child, is back. He and Freddy, representing Michael, stopped William, and Vanny, Elizabeth, gets to fight another day.
In at 10, animatronics. We can joke all we want about how Afton has a hardcore bloodlust in this series, but his desire for human destruction has been there since the start. Thanks to the fast facts found in FNAF AR's files, we learned that the Funtime robots, the ones used in Sister Location, were actually some of the first robots Afton ever made. Not exactly the first, but among the first. And that they were built with special containment chambers inside to store away items, which we all know is code for children's storage tanks, which we see the Funtimes actually have in their blueprints from FNAF 6. So this means that Afton has been wanting to kill kids since before his kids had died. Hell, even maybe before his kids were born, depending on the timeline. Which at this point is as simple as my feelings for Vanessa, which is not simple at all. If anyone like cosplays Vanessa, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. Possibly killed wife. This hasn't been confirmed as of yet, so it's currently not canon. Many people still consider William Afton offing his wife to be the story of her demise, even though technically we know nothing about her, and she could still be alive for all we know. Many people consider her to have died in either a car crash or because William killed her, and those are like the most common thoughts on the matter. Although the her dying in a car accident thing came from like a FNAF original music video that was probably using Minecraft characters that is in no way canon to the series. Like, I've had people yell at me in my DMs telling me that it's canon that she died in a car accident, but no, it's not. It's not even canon that she died, really, but the potential is still there that William was the reason she kicked the animatronic parts filled bucket. Since it's only a possibility though, it's only number 9. If it gets confirmed, I'm more than willing to bump it up higher, because like statistically speaking, your spouse is the person most likely to kill you, so she should have been on her guard. And it ain't missing children's incident. I mean, this is a fairly low-hanging fruit since it's like the inciting moment for the whole series, but I think it's worth calling out at least number 8. The missing children's incident, in case you forgot, is the infamous incident where 5 kids go missing inside of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and are never seen again. Police investigated but were never able to find the bodies, thus they had to let their suspect, in this case William Afton, go due to a lack of evidence. However, this is one of the most horrifically painful moments that you can think of, especially if you're a parent yourself. 5 families went into Freddy Fazbear's wanting their kids to have the time of their lives in 1985, but left without their favorite people. They had the time of their lives, alright, it just so happened to also be the end of their lives. And not only that, but Afton ends up getting away with it since the police were terrible at their jobs or were getting paid off. Still not sure which one is the case in this series, but the missing children's incident is one of the most messed up things to ever happen in this series, but without it we wouldn't have the series. At least it's all fake, right? And at 7, Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night was a really interesting turning point for the FNAF series. The original Afton storyline was at a close, and this game was the ultimate capstone to that, with some important lore hints in the form of voice lines that played when you get killed, which is good because it happens a lot. However, this game still fits into the FNAF story and serves as a link between the original story and the new one. The new story being Afton trying to escape the video game world he got himself locked in, or now being burn trap or whatever the hell he is. But we originally interpreted this game all wrong, since we initially thought that William was burning in hell this time, or stuck in purgatory, but as all Supernatural fans know, purgatory is just a giant forest where monsters kill each other for eternity. But in reality, this must just be what he's seeing in his charging station in the basement of the Pizzaplex, since honestly, that's really the only way that this makes sense. At least if it's still Afton. Eventually he wakes up, which is him beating 50-20 mode in fights against us, which results in him getting grabbed by the blob and maybe surviving, because we still don't know. And at 6, lied about Remnant. Now this isn't confirmed, much like the fact that he possibly killed his wife. However, this seems like the most likely explanation to me. So if you want a full explanation as to why I think Afton was the one who lied about Remnant, go check out that video linked up in the iCard. But I'm going to wrap this up quickly here. Basically, there have been 3 fires so far that were meant to finish off William Afton, and none of them have worked. The reason Henry tried fire was because that's supposed to be the thing that can burn off Remnant. However, Remnant can also be found in liquid form, so how can it be molten but also be burnt by fire? It makes more sense that William made up the lie that he could be killed by fire, so Henry would keep trying and failing to kill him, so he wouldn't have to worry about actually dying, since literally every time he's been caught in the fire, he has survived. And the other animatronics infused with Remnant also survived, like Baby, the puppet, and entered in FNAF 6, as we see from the blob in Security Breach. Halfway through in at number 5, Vanny. Vanny is a follower of the digital virus Glitch Trap, a reincarnation of the serial killer William Afton, and appears as the main antagonist of FNAF Security Breach. It's revealed in the Princess Quest minigames that she was the main protagonist of Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted, where she was first corrupted by Glitch Trap. She also plays a role in FNAF AR Special Delivery. Vanny wears a white bunny costume that has stitching all over it, with a large pink patch on her left hip. The costume also has a bright blue bow on the chest, and its hands and feet have like the pink pads under them, like the actual animal paws. Her bunny mask is also white, has a creepy smile and small buck teeth, along with a pair of whiskers, small eyebrows, and big glowing red eyes that appear to be spaced out. Vanny is shown to be murderous and evil as she attempts to trick Gregory into falling for a trap by pretending to be a nice and well-meaning security guard. She seems to cower in fear of her master Glitch Trap, as shown in scrap dialogue, and she just won't talk about him at all when in therapy, even though she mentions it but then immediately backtracks. She also has some uncertainty in her voice when being confronted about her task where she's supposed to be killing people. However, at the time of Security Breach, which takes place after the conversation we hear in Help Wanted, she apparently has killed 9 people at this point, as we can see from the newspaper article, assuming one of them isn't Gregory. But technically, being possessed by Glitch Trap makes her a version of William Afton. And at 4, Later That Night. The Midnight Motorist minigame seems simple enough, but the true horror of this minigame comes from the implications of it, since in the game files the minigame is known as Later That Night. Most people akin the game to what happened after William kills Charlotte outside Fredbear's Family Diner in FNAF 2's Take Cake minigame. But if this is true, this is probably one of the scariest moments in all of FNAF history. This man just killed someone, but then goes home to his kids, reprimands his son and abuses him by locking him in his room so much that he had to break his window to escape. Plus, think of all the people driving past him, unaware of the violent crime that he had just committed. committed. It's scary because this is the case in the real world too. Technically speaking, anyone we encounter can be a serial killer. And that is a horrific thought, since also you're only alive because everyone you've ever encountered has chosen not to kill you, which only makes the whole anyone could be a serial killer thing even worse. And in this case, this man literally just killed someone and then comes home and is going to yell at his son who's been in his room all day. Like, god damn, bro, how much residual anger do you have suppressed inside your body? Getting close to the end to number 3, Burn Trap. William appears as the optional yet canon final boss in Security Breach, named Burn Trap according to the game files. He only appears in the canon ending, which is the Afton ending, or the true ending, whatever you want to call it. This form is the result of Vanny downloading William's soul from the digital realm into an old hybrid abomination of an animatronic suit, endoskeleton, and the little remains of his corpse, which just seems to be an extremely burnt scrap trap animatronic. It's hence the Burn Trap name. Burn Trap's new rotten form appears to be his old but modified, tattered, greenish brown spring Bonnie suit that has become even more severely withered, tattered, and burned because, you know, it's been through like 3 fires, with the whole entire lower jaw ripped out, revealing his skull covered in blood with some burnt flesh remaining and some metallic eyes and small pupils. The suit is missing fur with the exception of their chest, hips, legs, upper legs. The rest is extremely burnt. He's very charred. He's like charcoal at this point. Like, you can use him to forge a sword. His old endoskeleton has seemingly been replaced with the newer endoskeletons that the Glamrock animatronics have, and that makes him even taller and gives him sharp claws and fingers. So yeah, I don't think I need to explain why this is on this list. Penultimately, in at number 2, First Victim. They say a killer's first victim is the most important, since it usually indicates what got them to start killing or other psychological clues that they could use to predict his next moves. But in the case of William Afton, his first victim was the daughter of his longtime business partner Henry, which is hella messed up because she was 3 at the time, that time being 1983. And this is the year that Afton's life started going downhill in the worst ways possible. He starts killing off kids and then sticks with that MO throughout the rest of his criminal career. But the fact that his first victim was someone who trusted him, who didn't exactly suspect him even though her father did, is something even I fear. I'm not a parent, so I can only imagine how this must have felt. And if that was me, I'd be doing a lot more than burning down restaurants in an attempt to put that down. I'd be doing it myself, especially if he had killed my daughter when she was only 3 years old. Like, I can feel the rage brewing and I don't even have someone that I could, in theory, make a daughter with. And finally, in at number 1, killed his kids. The worst thing that Afton has done by far is gotten his own kids killed. Sure, he may not have done it directly, but his actions ended up resulting in all 3 of his kids' demises. Him killing Charlotte got Fredbear's clothes, which resulted in him having to open up Circus Babies, which made him have to dust off Baby and the other Fun Times, which were designed to kill in the first place. Baby ends up grabbing and crushing Elizabeth, resulting in her possessing the animatronic. He superpowered the jaw of the Fredbear animatronic used in the new Freddy Fazbear's, which ends up crushing his youngest son's skull, since that was not a spring lock failure due to all the spring locks being active, since it was in animatronic mode, not suit mode, so there was nothing to fail, meaning that he had to have been crushed by the power of his jaw. And while you could argue that it was Michael's fault, why would he think that Fredbear's mouth was overpowered? As the suit technician, William knew what was going on and intentionally souped up the jaw power. And then he gets Michael killed when he sends him down to find his sister in sister location, which ends up getting him stuffed with innards and then letting himself burn in Pizzeria Simulator. So yeah, William's actions got all 3 of his kids killed just because he had to kill his business partner's daughter. And at 10, Purple Guy. William Afton is depicted as the Purple Guy in FNAF 2, a mysterious purple figure that was the figurehead of the Five Nights series. In the Take Cake minigame, he is depicted driving up outside the pizzeria and killing a kid outside the restaurant. Finally, he lured 5 kids into the back room using cake and a yellow suit, and then, as seen in the Foxy Go 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 minigame, killed them too. They go on to possess Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, Foxy, and Golden Freddy respectively. The puppet, who is the first victim, would then give them life in the animatronic suits to save their souls. In the second game, he is implied to have been the night guard before Jeremy Fitzgerald, and after surviving a week on the night shift, he complained about his conditions, so then he was moved to day shift. Although that's weird because he's the owner of the company, so why would he be just a security guard if he was also the suit technician? But currently that's all we have. He also went to kill on 5 more kids at that location, as we see in the Save Them minigame. And at 9, Pink Guy. The Pink Guy is the title given to the version of Purple Guy seen in FNAF 2's Foxy Go 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 minigame, which is already a huge issue, since now a load of people think that there are 2 killers in the series, and seriously caused a whole group of people to believe that the 2 killer theory was canon, and some of them I'm sure think of it to this day, despite the Pink Guy never making an appearance after that game. He's slightly higher on the list than Purple Guy because, well, everyone knows the Purple Guy, but those coming into the series later on may not know about this whole pink and purple debacle, unless they binged all of MatPat's theories, in which case they've heard it before. Back in the day though, in 2014 when the FNAF 2 came out, did you believe that there were 2 killers? Be sure to let me know down below. There's no shame in it, unless you still believe it to this day, with the exception of Vanny, since technically now there are 2 killers, but none of them were ever the Pink Guy. And at 8, Mustard Man. Mustard Man is certainly an interesting variant of William. Appearing in the Midnight Motorist minigame from FNAF 6, you can only see this character if you use the secret shortcut hidden in lap 10. Well, okay, I say shortcut, but it's really a hidden level at the bottom of the map. This takes you through a whole separate story process where you go to a place named Junior's, get turned away, and then you go home. Someone in gray tells you to not be so hard on him, he's had a rough day, and then you proceed to be hard on him, whoever he is, since he's broken a window and seemingly escaped his room. This is very clearly meant to represent William Afton before Crying Child dies at the hands of Fredbear, since Crying Child would have been the one breaking his window in order to go to that place again. The single house in a clearing also parallels itself to FNAF 4's main menu screen with a single house on a clearing on a hill, and this minigame also gives us the order of events of children's deaths, since it seems to be like Elizabeth is gone at this point, so she would already be dead, and this also happens right after William killed Charlotte, since it's called later that night in the game files. So the order of deaths would go Elizabeth, Charlotte, Crying Child, and then the missing children's incident of 1985. And at 7, Stored his daughter. While we know Afton isn't the best father, I think it's something else to end up locking your robot possessed by the soul of your dead daughter into an animatronic testing facility. That seems a bit too far if you ask for my humble opinion. But nevertheless, he still did it, and that's what Sister Location is all about. And William was even the one who sent us as Michael down there in the first place, and then we get shoved full of Ennard bits so that they can escape. Did William know about that plan? Unsure, because like in FNAF 6, Baby says that she'll make her dad proud. So was that William's intention to like send us down there so Baby could get out? And if that was the case, why lock her down in there in the first place? I mean, like if she was your daughter, why not have her just like chill around the house, right? Like in the books, Baby is able to transform between Baby and like a human looking animatronic at will. So why not add this to that version, and then you can have your daughter back, albeit a little more messed up. But like more like you in the long run, right? I don't know. This family is messed the hell up, and nothing makes sense. And at 6, Dave Miller. In the novels, Afton is described as being overweight around the time that the serial killings occurred, but he eventually lost that weight while in his Dave Miller persona, which comes from the FNAF novels, particularly the Silver Eyes. As Dave, William is slated to be tall and was described as being sallow and thin, with his skin sagging in appearance. His face was poorly shaven and his eyes looked unfocused and sunken. His security guard uniform didn't seem to fit him properly, and the uniform was grubby and torn in places, with his name tag hung askew on his chest. The scar on his neck was also ugly and curved, almost like a perfect half moon, and the same scar appeared on the other side of his neck. In the graphic novels, Dave is depicted as having messy brown hair and gray eyes. He wears a scuffy uniform, his shirt is white with a black tie and pants, and due to the spring lock failure incident, there are endoskeleton arm marks where his arms are, as well as an endoskeleton torso. He also has the 2 scars on the back of his neck, which are also from the endoskeleton. Halfway through into number 5, Midnight Motorist. The Midnight Motorist minigame seems simple enough, but the true horror of this minigame comes from the implications of it. Since in the game files, the minigame is known as Later That Night. Most people akin this game to what happened after William kills Charlotte outside of Fredbear's Family Diner in FNAF 2's Take Cake minigame. But if this is true, this is probably one of the scariest moments in all of FNAF history. This man just killed someone, and then he goes home to his kids. He reprimands his son and abuses him by locking him in his room so much that he had to break a window to escape. Plus, think of all the people driving past him, unaware of the violent crime that he had just committed. It's scary because this is the case in the real world too. Technically speaking, at least. Anyone we encounter could be a serial killer. And that's a horrific thought. And at 4, Scrap Trap. William returned once again in FNAF Pizzeria Simulator with a new design, dubbed Scrap Trap. While he does retain some key physical details from Springtrap's design, there are some major differences. Unlike his previous design where his interior was mostly machinery, it's now mostly organic and shows his human skeleton as well as his flesh, and 5 bony fingers on his hands. The reason as to why William Afton is much more detailed this time around is unknown, but it could be possibly because his full body can be seen. in one of the like boot screens, but there are more torn patches on his suit this time around with multiple exposed wires, and he lost his left forearm, half of his left ear, and the rest of his right ear. His feet now have fabric over them and 3 large round toes on each foot. His eyes don't glow anymore and he looks mostly metallic, and the mask also has some significant differences with a much larger eye socket, black nose, square muzzle, a singular pair of buck teeth in the top row, and just like sharp needle teeth at the bottom, as well as just being differently proportioned, which begs the question of how did this happen if he's still supposed to be Springtrap, or the same suit as Springtrap. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, stuffed. One of the most deranged things that William Afton did was stuff the bodies of the original 5 missing children into the original 5 animatronics: Bonnie, Foxy, Freddy, Chica, and Golden Freddy. And the craziest part is that he didn't get caught for it. Yeah, he didn't. The animatronics smelt like death, started leaking blood and other fluids, and the police didn't bat an eye. He put these bodies in animatronics that perform for other kids and their parents every single day. How does anyone think that that's a good idea? Unless it was his way of displaying his kills or something, like some of the crime shows like to mention. How some killers enjoy the world knowing what they did, since it helps them feel more powerful or something. Fuels their ego. Like maybe even if they didn't know that the bodies were there, William could be using that as an ego boost, which is messed up. And also ruins the whole he did it because his kids were dying theory, aside from the whole him killing before his kids died thing. Also, how did the police not confiscate the animatronics for evidence? And ultimately, in at number 2, Glitch Trap. Glitch Trap is the digital manifestation of William Afton and first appeared in FNAF Help Wanted. Glitch Trap takes on the form of a man wearing a cartoonish Spring Bonnie costume based on Spring Bonnie's appearance from a poster advertising Fredbear's Family Diner, being like a really odd, grinning, bipedal, golden yellow rabbit. Basically, the cartoon version of Spring Bonnie. He's wearing a purple star-speckled vest, a purple bow tie, because of course he is, of course it's purple, and 2 black buttons near the top of his chest. He also has stitches across his hands and all of his joints because, you know, it's a suit this time around. He initially appeared translucent, progressing into a less spectral form over time as you collect the 16 tapes, and he also possessed vivid purple eyes and small pupils, because of course he does, because purple. In black light mode, his eyes will turn blue with white circular pupils, but that's just because they're basically inverting him. He also has large whiskers on either side of his face, 3 eyelashes on both of his eyes, and large arching eyebrows, because you know what, he wants to take you to the back of the pizza joint, and then, you know, Uncle Fluffy ain't gonna do nice things. And finally, in at number 1, Springtrap. Springtrap is William Afton's first physical incarnation, appearing as a weak yet still living William sealed in a heavily damaged Golden Bonnie Springlock suit. This version first appeared in FNAF 3, and he has a drab olive color, which is weird considering how olive is more green, and he was originally supposed to be yellow, but whatever. He has darker colors all over like the insides of his stuff. A great portion of his right ear is missing, with a single red wire sticking out of the stump. Springtrap's entire body is torn and tattered, with gaping holes bearing exposed wires and casing, and yeah, basically, he looks very run down, like he's been sitting in the same room for 30 years. Oh wait, he has. His nose is like irregular and squarish, and he looks nothing like how Scraptrap looks, which still makes no sense to me. And this time, he has none of his feet. Yeah, that's right. The feet that he has attached are like the endoskeleton is intact, but the casing is stripped mid-shin down, and then you can like see all of the endoskeleton wiring, the actual endoskeleton, and the tendons that would have made up this section of actual William if he wasn't trapped in an animatronic suit. Keep in mind that this Afton is still alive at this point, since the one you should not have killed, crying child, is still keeping him alive, okay? So he could continue to suffer. So he's still alive at this point, and I'm tired of you people telling me that he's not, okay? Springtrap is not an animatronic. And it's in FNAF 3. After FNAF 3's ending, when we learn about the fire, we thought that was it. We, like, for at least, like, 20 seconds until people started brightening the image of the final screen, which is just, like, classic FNAF by now. And then that's when we saw Springtrap sitting in the shadows behind the stuffed animal that was in the image of the news article about the fire. Now, I have no idea how the photographer didn't see that, or if William has the news outlets working for him too, or whatever, but this is absolutely terrifying. And it's really what started us down the rabbit hole of the several hoops that we would have to jump through to find more clues and lore. Brightening this one image made us have to comb through the files of mobile games. Anyway, this image set us on a path to thinking that William survived the fire and that this would not be the last FNAF game. I don't know if this was supposed to be, or if this was just an Easter egg. Like if it was like meant to allow for more games in the series if Scott wanted to, because originally he wanted to end it with FNAF 3, but hey, either way it happened, and here we are like 6 games and 15 books later. And at 9, Help Wanted ending. The final minigame of Help Wanted is Pizza Party, where you have to navigate your way through the various rooms of the pizzerias to get to your pizza party. The whole time you're having to avoid animatronics that will sometimes jump scare you, sometimes not. But the real horror comes from when you get to your own party. It wasn't thrown by your friends, it wasn't thrown by your family, it was thrown by Glitch Trap. That's right, Dio Fluffy in the back room. After seeing the ruined bodies of Chica and Bonnie, Glitch Trap appears from behind a curtain. Your final moment is spent walking through that curtain as the screen goes black. Next thing you know, you're on stage with a microphone in your hand. That's right, you've been stuffed. Put in a Freddy suit by none other than William Afton himself. But how? He wasn't supposed to be in the game, right? He was some code that got scanned in by accident. Well, doesn't matter now. That's one of the scariest moments of any game though. You experiencing what every child has once William has shown them where the other pizzas are kept. Just, Jesus, I don't even, like, it gives me chills, especially with that dancing at the end that makes it worse. And at 8, the first one. They say a killer's first victim is the most important, since it usually indicates what got them to start killing or other psychological issues that they could use to predict their next moves. But in the case of William Afton, his first victim was the daughter of his longtime business partner Henry, which is hella messed up because she was 3 at the time, that time being 1983. And this is the year that Afton's life started going downhill in the worst way possible. But the fact that his first victim was someone who trusted him, who didn't exactly suspect him even though her father did, is something that even I fear, okay? I'm not a dad, I think, so I can only imagine how this must have felt. And if that was me, I wouldn't just be burning down restaurants in an attempt to send William to hell. I would be doing that myself, an express route right downstairs. And at 7, William Afton. William Afton is the classic version of the psychotic killer that we all know and want permanently dead. At least I do. Being first introduced by name in the Silver Eyes novel and then in the games and sister location, William Afton is the one behind all the killings and is the true name of the man we originally knew as the Purple Guy. He's the one who used the Yellow Spring Bonnie suit to lure kids into the back room in 1985 and kill them, and he's the one who opened up Circus Baby's Pizza World to find more kids after Fredbear's closed and got his daughter killed because of it. William Afton, much like every other instance of this character, has done the same things as the other versions, but at least this time we had his true name, as revealed in the sister location opening cutscene. Quote, "There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state of the art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping you could shed some light on those. She can dance, she can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream. With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton." And at 6, FNAF 6. William surviving the FNAF 6 fire was much harder to believe when it came to it, at least before Bunny Call was released. However, some fans seemed to note that during the final cutscene of FNAF 6, during Henry's speech, while the other animatronics were engulfed by flames, Scrap Trap was ahead of them. This was especially hard to believe given that we thought Ultimate Custom Night took place in hell, which is really impossible to get to unless you die. Well, me being the exception. I party with Satan like regularly. He can't hold his liquor. It's kind of weird. I don't understand it. Either way, this was all proven to be true when Bunny Call was released and William was in the hospital in the man in room 1280. However, this eventually was proven also not to be the case because it's FNAF. I gotta say, that's like the biggest troll in the entire series. Or at least like one of the biggest trolls. Like, come on, Scott, really? You kill him off only to make him alive in the books, and then kill him off in that same story, and then you prove that he's alive again in Security Breach? Or maybe he isn't even alive anymore and is just a possessed animatronic? Who knows at this point? Not even Scott, not even Steel Wool, not even whoever's taking over next. Halfway through in at number number 5, Vanessa. Possessing Vanessa was certainly one of the more messed up things that William did. It just sounds weird, you know? Like this guy pops up into your VR headset, then takes over your body without your consent, so now you end up killing for him. That's kind of messed up. Actually, no, not kind of, that's incredibly messed up. I mean, she knows what's going on too. She actively talks in hushed tones about how she can't talk about it to her therapist. So like, what the hell is the dynamic here? I mean, possessing someone is already pretty messed up, but then causing them to make a rabbit costume so you're still a furry is a whole other set of kinks that I don't even want to talk about. And then she knows that there's an evil inside her, but she can't do anything about it. She fears for her life, which only makes me wonder what William has been saying to her, and she's now, with full knowledge of her darker half, willing to lock a kid in a lost and found room until the police arrive, despite never calling the police, and then lets that darker half track him down. In at 4, Assimilate. The ending of FNAF VR, like the real ending where you fight Glitch Trap, is certainly a scary moment. It also just sounds weird, you know? Like this guy just pops into your VR headset, then takes over your body so that you end up killing for him. It's kind of messed up. And actually not kind of, that's incredibly messed up. She ends up knowing what's going on too. Like she actively talks in hushed tones and about how she can't talk about it to her therapist. So like what the hell's the dynamic here? And by she and her, I mean Vanessa, Vanny, obviously. I mean, like, possessing someone is already pretty messed up, but then, like, causing them to make a rabbit costume because you're still kinky furry is a whole other set of equations. I don't even want to talk about how messed up that is. She knows there's an evil inside her, but she can't do anything about it. She fears for her life, which only makes me wonder what William's been saying in her head, and she knows what's going on. Ah, man, like, well, being willing to lock a kid in a lost and found room until the police arrive, even though you know that William's gonna take over, that's that. Man, you really need a therapist. So does William, honestly. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Burn Trap. William appears as the optional yet canon final boss in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, named as Burn Trap according to the game files. He only appears in the canon ending though. This form couldn't be a result of Vanny downloading William's soul from the digital realm into his own hybrid animatronic of the animatronic suit, although his corpse is still partially visible. You can like see his whole jaw at this point. Burn Trap's new rotten form appears to wear his old but modified tattered greenish brown spring bodysuit, and it has become even more severely withered, having been burnt around 3 times at this point, and he's still not goddamn dead. The suit is missing fur, with the exception of the chest, hips, left foot, upper leg, and everything else was basically burnt away, and it reveals more of his charred corpse, although there is little of it left. His other endoskeleton has been replaced with the same endoskeletons that the Glamrock animatronics have, making him taller and giving him claws with sharp fingers, which I'm sure he's going to use later on. 2 of them replaced with like fleshy finger bones on his right hand though. I don't know. This is the creepiest version that we've seen so far, but I like it. But ultimately, in number 2, the Blob. The true ending is seemingly one of the scariest parts of the game because it contains a load of things. After making your way into Burn Trap's area, Freddy will be taken over by Afton's newest form, and it's up to Gregory to defeat him by using the 3 monitors to keep burning him. Players will also need to avoid the animatronic enemies that come after Gregory and use the doors to temporarily lock them out if they can. When Springtrap is burned though, the Blob, which has like that tentacle monster thing, will attack and make sure that he doesn't get free, which is really weird and horrifying considering how, you know, I don't know if he's dead. Freddy and Gregory will be shown escaping and then sitting on a hill together, but the tentacle monster's identity was never revealed. But originally, after this game, the final Fazbear Frights book would have released, which would have showed us that the tentacle monster we would have been talking about is in fact Baby, or I guess Elizabeth Afton, or it is in the books. But I guess while they share similar elements, they aren't the same thing, because Baby's eyes are off, so it could be that the original 5 missing children are getting their revenge on Afton, since those could be the souls inside of Ennard, which would have been Molten Freddy, and that's seemingly the face that the Blob is using, even though it's Funtime Freddy. But you know what? The only way to explain this series fully is to say that every game takes place in a different universe. Every game is separate from each other. That's the only way it works. And finally, and in number 1, the spring locking. I believe we all know this story by now. Everything was going well at first, okay? The cops couldn't pin him down, and he was on his way to immortality. Well, technically he had it already thanks to the one you should not have killed, but once William discovered Remnant, however, he spiraled. He wanted to use it to fuel his life and truly make him immortal. So, in an effort to study it further, William lures the possessed animatronics to the back room where they can't access it, and then he uses it to dismantle them, planning to melt them down into their endoskeletons to fuse that soul metal into his body. However, by doing this, he unknowingly releases the souls of the victims that he claimed however many years ago. I think it might have been like 2 or something, I don't know. Shocked, from seeing his literal murder victims, he ends up fleeing into his spring bodysuit, which also makes him feel powerful. However, his haste coupled with the leaking room ended up causing the spring locks to fail, crushing him in torturous agony for the next 30 years. However, he didn't die from this, because as we learn in the Man in Room 1280, he was being kept alive by the spirit of yet another victim. So he's been living in agony for the past 30 years, and that makes him damn well deserving of the #1 spot. Before you ask, Garvey isn't even a thing, okay? So like, I'm not gonna talk about Garvey. It's not even in the FNAF canon. Why are you asking me about it? Leave me alone. First, we have to discuss what the story of Poppy Playtime is, and if it can relate to anything currently in the FNAF world. What we know about the company that seems to be the main antagonist of Poppy Playtime series, called Playtime Co., is also basically the story of the game. They seemingly hit it big in the 1960s with the release of Poppy, the world's first truly intelligent toy. This Poppy doll put them on the map, marking them as the king of toys until dolls fell out of style in the late 70s, causing Playtime Co. to have to update their repertoire and come out with newer toys like Huggy Wuggy and Candy Cat, among others. This helped them bring back some of the business they lost, but this didn't seem to be enough. They soon began seemingly experimenting with more realistic dolls in an attempt to recreate Poppy's success, because let's face it, even if there was a truly intelligent version of Poppy, not every version of Poppy would be like that. Only the one they used in commercials and later we release at the end of that chapter, just like how ice cream in commercials is really mashed potatoes. Yeah, sorry. Sentient toys, however, are nothing new to FNAF, so William wouldn't really feel like a stranger. Of course, we also have to decide what version of William comes over. If it was William, Springtrap, Scrap Trap, Burn Trap, Glitch Trap, or maybe even Dave Miller, William's alias while he was on the run and underground in the Silver Eyes novel. Because the Springtrap personality or persona is very different to the William Afton persona. Springtrap is a very aggressive personality compared to William, who is sneaky and calculated as opposed to Springtrap's direct approach. So assuming that since this story revolves around people more than the toys, who are definitely instrumental but not as important like they would be in FNAF, in this case we would be going with William Afton specifically, because he needs to be able to sneak around and do villainous things, whereas Springtrap would likely just end up being a toy. Well, actually, like, if we think about it, maybe we can work two versions into this series. So, if Afton was in Poppy Playtime, he would probably just end up being a higher up at the company. Just because he doesn't seem like a man who sees living doll or truly intelligent doll and then doesn't do anything about it. Okay, look, if Afton's coming over, his story has to come over as well. It can't be just some random dude who's named William Afton. So he would have to have the story of wanting to bring his kids back. So, after hearing this, he would start at the company and eventually work his way up. By the time the actual game comes around, I'm guessing that he'd be pretty high up, like on the board of directors or shareholders or whoever it is at least. But I think that he wouldn't be CEO or close to that, because like, he doesn't seem like that type. He'd have worked his way up because he doesn't seem like the kind of person who likes working for other people, you know, like he likes to be in control. Hence why his targets for his crimes are kids, since they're easier to control. So he'd be a higher up at the company, and not the top because he wouldn't want all that attention, and it would probably have been his idea to try and recreate the success of Poppy with new toys, since his goal of bringing his children, or at least the crying one, back would kind of still need to be there for this character to make sense. Like I was explaining earlier, he kind of need to have that, otherwise it's not William, it's just some guy. Although everything associated with the pizzeria in his story could just be a separate entity within the Poppy Playtime world. As a reasonable extension of William being the one who suggests these experiments, I'm also going to be guessing he's the one conducting them, since if nobody can do it right, you gotta do it yourself when it comes to creating human toys. That sounds weird. This then leads him to create Experiment 1006 that then escapes, like we see during the events of Poppy Playtime Chapter 1. So Afton's voice would be the one that we heard on the tapes. This would probably mean that he's actually dead, because, you know. But no. So instead, since he knew about the risks, he would take those into consideration and would probably have a backup plan if anyone or anything ended up going haywire. Probably something that turned himself into a toy or something similar to give him enhanced strength and stamina, as well as just keep him alive longer. No longer needing to eat and sleep. Thus, Springtrap is born. Well, the Springtrap that would be in this universe. So here, Springtrap wouldn't really be an animatronic suit that Afton got spring locked in, but rather the toy that Afton would have turned himself into. Willingly, might I add. But they'd still remain largely the same, since both have Afton's organic body inside them, yet still enhancing it in some way. So after we knock down Huggy Wuggy, we go to release Poppy, thus ending the first chapter. My idea would be that this is actually what William wanted all along. Or maybe not what he wanted specifically, but something that would draw him out. Knowing that the only true working human toy hybrid is actually out and has been released from its prison would certainly entice the man that just wants to use this technology to bring back his son to come out. So in chapter 2, if William was in Poppy Playtime, he could reasonably be the villain that we'd be fighting. Experiment 1007, if you will. So he'd come after Poppy so that he could study her and make sure he knows how to bring his son back. Well, maybe. However, he would soon learn that the secret to recreating Poppy was that the person becoming the toy would have to be willing to do so, like Poppy's human and William were. Yeah, because William willingly turned himself into a toy to survive Huggy, he's also one of these perfect human toy hybrids, meaning that to become a toy, the person would have to be alive, which would send William spiraling and probably turn him into the Springtrap we all know and love, but also hate. For me, mostly hate. He needs to die. Hell, you know what? Just for literary significance, he may even just set fire to the Playtime Co. facility just out of anger. Because honestly, that would make sense given the history of this character in the other franchise. We'd obviously end up surviving this fire though, and Springtrap would later become the main antagonist, while we spent our time fighting off the other experiments that escaped. So we'd have 5 additional chapters, at least after chapter 2, where we'd fight experiments 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, and 1005, assuming that that's the scheme that they'd be going with. But the whole time, we'd wonder why Afton didn't kill us directly, and instead just tried to crash the building down on us, which in reality gave us plenty of time to escape, which would also be a big mystery of the game and the ongoing chapters. He could have had us by the throat and then let go to run away. And we wouldn't know until the final chapter that the reason is because we are either Afton's child or the toy of one of his kids, which is why he released us and gave us a chance to leave. Resulting in a final battle between father and son where he realized that it's him or us, meaning he doesn't care if we're his son, he's seen how fragile this form can be and is now in the form of Springtrap known as Scraptrap. We end the fight by burning down the building with us inside as well, alluding to FNAF 6, killing all of us, or at least it seems that way, because, you know, he always comes back. In the final chapter, we get one final scene of something crawling out of the burnt down ruins of whatever warehouse we were in that stored all the Playtime Co. toys. And as we zoom in, we see bunny ears. And the most recent form of Springtrap, Burn Trap, emerges from the rubble, and the scene cuts to black. Poppy Playtime may be over, but Burn Trap's playtime is just beginning. That sounds kind of creepy, considering how he wants to lure kids to the back of pizza joints. There we have it, friends. My idea of what would happen if William Afton was in Poppy Playtime Chapter 2. Although now that I think about it, this sounds more like a fan fiction than anything else. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump out that window and regret every decision that I've made that has brought me to this moment. But what games would you like to see Afton appear in next? Or I guess, what games should I make Afton appear in next in a totally convoluted and pointless way? Be sure you let me know down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been and shall remain Connor Monroe, and I'll see you in another video. Whee!